Hello, my dear friends. Welcome back to Auntie Grace Speaks. Get comfortable, because today's story starts with one of the most humiliating moments a mother can experience, and it ends not with shouting, not with anger, not with a dramatic confrontation, but with a quiet, devastating, beautiful kind of justice. The kind that only time can deliver. This is the story of Evelyn Rose Carter. And I want you to remember her name. Evelyn Rose Carter raised her son Marcus alone from the time he was 9 years old. His father, a man named Dennis, had left without warning on a Tuesday morning, taken his truck, his tools, and whatever else he could fit, and never come back. No letter, no phone call, just an empty closet and a note on the kitchen table that said, "I'm sorry, I can't do this." Evelyn had sat at that kitchen table for 2 hours. Then she had gotten up, made Marcus his breakfast, driven him to school, and gone to her job at the hospital where she worked as a nurse's aide. She did not have the luxury of falling apart. For the next 14 years, Evelyn was everything to Marcus. Mother, father, homework helper, soccer coach, best friend. She worked double shifts when she had to. She sold her jewelry when the rent came up short. She went without new clothes for 3 years straight, so Marcus could go on his senior class trip. Marcus knew what his mother had sacrificed. He never forgot it. He was that kind of son, the kind that sees his mother, really sees her. When he graduated college, he stood at the podium and said, "Everything I am, I owe to one woman." And he looked straight at Evelyn in the front row. She had cried so hard she could barely see him. Marcus met Nicole at work. She was beautiful, sharp, and ambitious. A project manager at his firm who wore expensive shoes and spoke in meetings like she had never once doubted herself. Evelyn tried to love Nicole. She genuinely tried, but Nicole made it difficult. From the very beginning, there was something cold in the way Nicole looked at Evelyn. A quiet the kind that doesn't show itself in one big moment. It shows itself in 100 small ones. The eye roll when Evelyn told a story. The way Nicole always checked her phone when Evelyn was speaking. The subtle comments about Evelyn's neighborhood, her clothes, her job. Evelyn said nothing. She told herself, "This is Marcus's choice. I will be gracious. I will be kind. I will not be the mother-in-law from the stories." The wedding was held at a beautiful venue outside Atlanta. 250 guests. A live band. An open bar. A 5-tier cake. Nicole's family had money. Real money. The kind that had been in the family for generations. And from the moment the planning began, it was made very clear, politely but unmistakably, that this was Nicole's wedding and Nicole's family's event. Evelyn had been given one job: show up, look nice, and stay out of the way. She had bought a new dress. Navy blue, elegant, appropriate. She had her hair done. She had arrived early, sat in the front row as the mother of the groom, and felt, despite everything, the overwhelming joy of watching her son marry. The humiliation happened at the reception. Nicole's mother, a tall, immaculate woman named Gloria, had arranged for a slideshow. Photos of Marcus and Nicole through the years, their vacations, their milestones, their story. Evelyn had submitted several photos of Marcus growing up, his childhood birthdays, his graduation, the two of them at his college move-in day. Not one of her photos appeared in the slideshow. Not a single one. Then came the toasts. Gloria stood up and gave a long, beautiful speech about Nicole, her accomplishments, her grace, her future. She thanked the vendors. She thanked the wedding party. She thanked the guests. She did not mention Evelyn once. When Marcus's best man gestured for Evelyn to stand, as is tradition for the mother of the groom, Gloria smoothly redirected the moment, saying, "And of course we are so grateful to everyone who traveled to be here tonight." Evelyn stood halfway, and then sat back down. 250 people watched it happen. Marcus had not seen it. He was talking with his groomsmen on the other side of the room. Evelyn's sister Diane, sitting beside her, reached under the table and took her hand. Evelyn squeezed back. She kept her face perfectly still. She smiled at the guests around her. She did not cry. Not there. Not in front of 250 people who had just watched her be made invisible. At her own son's wedding, she saved that for the drive home, alone, at midnight. On the highway, Evelyn did not call Marcus and tell him what happened. She knew what that conversation would cost. She had seen enough mothers lose their sons over conflicts with wives to know. If she forced Marcus to choose a side, she might not be the one he chose. And losing Marcus was not something Evelyn could survive. So she made a decision. She would not fight. She would not complain. She would not make Marcus miserable with the weight of her hurt. Instead, she would live. At 58 years old, Evelyn Rose Carter began building the life she had put on hold for 30 years. She enrolled in a nursing certification program, the one she had always wanted to complete, but never had time for when Marcus was young. She studied on weekends, took her exams, and passed on the first attempt. She joined a travel group for women over 50. Her first trip was to New Orleans. She ate beignets at midnight and danced in the street and laughed until her sides hurt with women she had just met. She started walking every morning, first for health, then for joy. Then because the early morning was the most peaceful part of her day, and she had earned every quiet minute of it. She did not disappear from Marcus's life. She showed up for every birthday, every holiday, every invitation she was given, however few they were. She sent Nicole a birthday card every year, signed warmly. She never spoke a negative word about her daughter-in-law to her son. Not once. That restraint, that quiet, iron restraint was the hardest thing Evelyn had ever done. Harder than working double shifts. Harder than the empty closet Dennis had left behind. Harder than sitting down at that reception when she should have been standing. 2 years after the wedding, things between Marcus and Nicole began to change. Evelyn did not know the details. She had not asked and had not been told. But she could hear it in Marcus's voice on their Sunday phone calls, a tiredness that had nothing to do with work, a flatness where there used to be warmth. What she eventually learned, slowly and in pieces, was this. Nicole had been promoted at work, a big promotion. One that came with long hours and frequent travel. The marriage had struggled under the weight of two ambitious people with no time and too much pride. There had been arguments about money, about priorities, about the fact that Marcus had always been close to his mother and Nicole had always resented it. And then, the thing that broke it. Nicole had asked Marcus to cut contact with Evelyn. Not reduce contact, cut it completely. Marcus had refused. He had said, and Evelyn only heard this much later, from Marcus himself, that there was one thing in his life that was not negotiable, and that was his mother. The woman who had raised him alone. The woman who had gone without so he could have. The woman who had sat at his wedding and been humiliated and never said one word about it because she loved him too much to make it his problem. He said, "I know what happened at the reception, Nicole. I found out 6 months later. And I need you to understand that woman is the reason I exist. I will not cut her off. Not for anyone." On a Sunday afternoon in October, almost exactly 2 years after the wedding, Marcus came to Evelyn's house. He sat across from her at the kitchen table where she had raised him. He told her everything. The arguments, Nicole's ultimatum, his answer, and then he slid an envelope across the table. Evelyn looked at it. She looked at her son. She said, "Marcus, what is this?" He said, "Open it, Mama." Inside the envelope were two things. The first was a printed receipt, a booking confirmation for a trip to Italy, 2 weeks, first-class flights, a small villa in Tuscany. Departure date, the following spring. The second was a handwritten note in Marcus's careful handwriting. It said, "Mama, I have been trying to find the words for 2 years. I don't think I will ever fully find them. So I will just say this. I know what you did for me. I know what it cost you. I know what happened at that reception. I know you never told me because you didn't want to hurt me. That is the most loving thing anyone has ever done for me in my life. I am so sorry it took me this long to say that out loud. You deserve the whole world. This is just a small start. I love you. Marcus." Evelyn read that note 3 times. Her hands were shaking. She looked up at her son, this man she had poured her entire life into. And she opened her mouth to say something, and no words came out. Just tears. The kind that have been waiting a very long time. Marcus got up from his chair, walked around the table, and held his mother the way a grown man holds the person who made him. He said, "You never have to be invisible again, Mama. Not ever again." Evelyn went to Italy that spring. She and Marcus spent 2 weeks walking through ancient streets, eating food that tasted like joy, watching the sun go down over hills that had been there for thousands of years. On the last evening, sitting outside a small restaurant in Florence with a glass of wine and the whole warm world around her, Evelyn thought about the woman she had been at that reception 2 years ago, sitting down when she should have been standing, keeping her face still, saving her tears for the highway. She thought, that woman was so strong, and so alone. And then she looked across the table at her son, laughing at something, face glowing in the candlelight, and she thought, but she is not alone anymore. She never was. He just needed time to find his way back to her. My dear friends, Evelyn never shouted, never threatened, never gave anyone the satisfaction of her bitterness. She simply lived with grace, with dignity, with the quiet certainty that she had done nothing wrong and that the truth, eventually, has a way of rising to the surface. And she was right. If someone has made you feel invisible, I want you to hear this. Your worth does not require their acknowledgement. Live your life so fully, so beautifully, so unapologetically, that there is no room left in it for the people who tried to shrink you. That is the most powerful revenge there is. And it feels so much better than anything else. If Evelyn's story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to Auntie Grace Speaks, and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. New stories every week, because every story here can change your heart. Auntie Grace.